and resources for exactly the reasons they are so dangerous. Yet the strange thing is, this groundbreaking discovery has made little difference to where we live. If you look at the plate boundaries, it's clear that many cities are located close by. In fact, 10 of the 20 largest cities in the world are next to dangerous fault lines. So why are we still building next to these danger zones? In the rugged hills of Central California is part of the answer. And to see it, I'm heading into the skies. At least I hope I am.
This is the dinkiest helicopter I've ever been in. It'll be nice when it's finished.
I'm going to see perhaps the most famous geological feature on the planet, and this is the best way to find it.
Yeah, this is it. This looks fantastic. You can see this beautiful furrow cut right through these hills here. That's amazing.
This line of hills with a trench cut through the middle is the San Andreas Fault. This fault is a boundary between the North American plate to the east and the Pacific plate to the west. For 25 million years, they've been grinding past each other to create the largest earthquake fault in North America.
The San Andreas Fault starts up there in Northern California, then slices down through 700 miles through here down to the border with Mexico. As it goes, it cuts through cities and towns and passes across a path of roads, bridges, aqueducts and fibre optic cables. If ever there was a fault line that cut through the very fabric of a modern society, then it's this one.
But a good reason why over 20 million people carry on living so close to this danger zone is that this plate boundary has made California rich. It began with the Californian gold rush. These nuggets of gold might have been found in streams, but the gold originally rose in hot mineral-rich fluids, forced up between the plates. In fact, almost everything that makes California wealthy is at least partly related to the San Andreas Fault. Take, for example, the scenery. It was the colliding plates that forced up mountains along the Californian coast. And this dramatic landscape attracts thousands of tourists every year, who spend an estimated $2 billion on sightseeing alone. Then there's the wine. That's partly down to the San Andreas too. California is mostly desert, but when moist air rolls in off the ocean and hits the mountains, it rises to form rain that irrigates this otherwise arid landscape. It's a microclimate that has made this one of the most productive farming regions in America. But the ultimate gift of the San Andreas is this.
Oil. Black gold. This is an oil seep, which is when oil leaks to the surface, just like a natural spring. Except this is black and gooey. Look at that. 150 years ago, when the first people were looking for oil, even the most witless prospector realised that places like this were a good place to drill.
And drill they did. Over the years, around 200,000 wells have been sunk here.
Most people probably think of Texas as America's oil state, but California was and still is one of the world's biggest oil producers, drawing more than 700,000 barrels of crude oil out the ground every day.
The oil formed millions of years ago deep inside the Earth, but it was the San Andreas Fault which split the rock and brought it close enough to the surface to be exploited.
So it seems that the San Andreas Fault has brought California some serious economic benefits. Its shaping of the land has created the conditions for oil, for agriculture, for wine, and even for tourism. But how much is that really worth?
The money men have done the sums. They reckon this state earns around $100 billion every year because of the San Andreas Fault. California's geology is a license to print money.
Earthquake geologists like me know that California gets struck by a big seismic shake every 100 to 150 years, and those major quakes are hugely destructive. That doesn't seem to dampen the spirits of the number crunchers that are in these skyscrapers. It's worked out that in a city like LA, a major earthquake will cause up to $250 billion worth of damage. Now that is a huge sum, but averaged out over a century, you're still in profit. You've got $100 billion a year coming in versus a one-off hit of $250 billion. That's a gain of 40 to 1. Any economist will tell you that's a pretty decent return.
10,000 years after our ancestors first settled along plate boundaries, the benefits of living along a fault line are as potent as ever.
The point is that in pure economic terms, we're still financially better off living along a fault line than not, even when it's one of the most active in the world. But the problem that I have with that equation is that life's not just about money.
Istanbul, the only city in the world to straddle Asia and Europe. This location at the crossroads of two continents has made it a trading hub for centuries. That's why I find it so exciting. It's a vibrant, bustling, cosmopolitan place. But Istanbul's location also brings with it great danger. Nearby lies the North Anatolian Fault, one of the most seismically active plate boundaries on the planet. Scientists reckon a major earthquake is due here anytime.
There's little doubt that in the very near future, Istanbul will be struck by a big earthquake. It's a strange feeling that this city that I love could be destroyed in my lifetime.
But it doesn't have to be. Here, they're starting to rewrite the terms of our ancient bargain with fault lines. The aim is to enjoy the benefits of living along this plate boundary without having to pay a price in human life. Below the waters of the Bosphorus, the channel that separates Europe from Asia, is a clue to the solution.
You know, this is such an eerie feeling. I'm 35 metres below the level of the Bosphorus, and I'm walking parallel to one of the most active earthquake zones in the world. So not the kind of place you expect to find a major engineering project. And yet that's exactly where the Turkish authorities decided to build an underground train line.
This tunnel, which will one day link Asia to Europe, is the deepest tunnel of its kind on Earth. And yet it runs alongside one of the most dangerous earthquake faults in the world.
These engineers are supremely confident that they've got the risks covered. Through some technical wizardry, the whole tunnel's designed to absorb the vibrations of even the largest of earthquakes. What these guys are doing effectively is confronting the earthquake threat head on.
This technology won't allow us to stop earthquakes, but it shows that if we really want to protect against their consequences, we can. Unfortunately, in Istanbul, this tunnel is only half the story.
You know, high-tech underground train tunnels are all very well, but the reality is that most people that will die in the next earthquake will die because the buildings that they live and work in collapse. And in that sense, Istanbul is completely unprepared. It's reckoned that when the next earthquake comes, it might bring down a quarter of the city. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be like that because we have the technical know-how to keep buildings standing.
The irony is, Istanbul already has a building that has survived earthquakes for centuries.
This magnificent building is the Hagia Sophia. It's got to be my favourite place in the city. For the tourists that come here, this is a fitting symbol of Istanbul's reputation as a crossroads of different civilizations. In its 1,500-year history, it's been a church, then a mosque, and now a museum.
The Hagia Sophia has stood through more than a dozen earthquakes without the benefit of modern technology. It was built on such a massive, monumental scale that even the biggest earthquakes never managed to knock it down.
You know, it's no accident that when the earthquake does strike, the two things that'll probably survive are one of the oldest buildings in the city and one of the newest. And that's because they're both structures that we've decided are worthy of looking after.
Today, we have the technology to protect every building, whether it's flats, factories, or offices, if we choose to. For 10,000 years, we've lived with the benefits and the dangers of fault lines.
You know, it's clear that people are going to continue to live along fault lines, probably for the next 10,000 years. But now we have two clear options. Stick with the old regime and take our chances, or embrace the